So this is an analysis of At Mornington by Gwen Harwood. In the first stanza of this poem, Harwood tells her responder about a memory of her childhood, the first time she's going to the beach with her family. It starts with the words, "they told me." This is about a memory. But what she's saying here is this is not her own memory. This is a memory that has been told to her and then incorporated into her own consciousness. And it speaks about the nature of memory and that memory is not necessarily just a representation of truth in our mind, but it is a culmination of a number of things. Yes, it's our own lived experience, but it's also the reimagining of that and the bringing together of stories from a number of people. So this memory is told to her and it questions whether does it matter that it's not 100% truthful? Or is it more important how she remembers it and how it then contributes to her own sense of identity and wholeness? So here she tells us that has been told that the first time she was taken to the sea's edge. We have this image of the edge, which has connotations of a precipice and a turning point, and there's danger and risk and change involved. We have the meeting of water and land, these natural elements, but also sort of opposing things. So we have this idea that there's something happening. This is important. This is an edge. It's for the first time, and she leaps from her father's arms and is caught by a wave and rolled like a doll. This image of being rolled like a doll is about the turbulence of life and that it's uncontrollable. And further on in this stanza, we have the fact that she felt that she seems to remember her father. So we've gone from a memory that's been told to her to one that's fuzzy and she thinks that she remembers. And then later we have, "indeed I remember believing." What is concrete to her is what she believed. The feeling, the emotion is what she absolutely remembers as a child. She felt that she could walk on water. It's a biblical image here, but also an image of the innocence of childhood, but also these feelings of invincibility and the defiance of nature, which we're going to see later on in the poem, that there's a sense that we have this idea that we're not bound by the physical world. And she's saying that as a child she had this feeling that she could walk on water. She wasn't bound to the physical world, which we have throughout this poem as we talk about trying to transcend time in the way memory and friendship transcends time. And she says it's only a matter of balance, this sense of it's easy to do these things, and when you're a child you really do see yourself as eternal and you don't have an idea that death will come. On what flood are they born, these memories of early childhood? Flood here is another water image and also a biblical image of Noah and the flood and of preserving things through taking their parts and to build a whole. She says that these memories are iridescent, which is an image of light and glowing and illumination, and also something that we would go towards, something that's iridescent and draws us towards it. But it's also fugitive, it's fleeting, like childhood itself. It's temporary and it's constrained by time. So we have this mixed image here, and it's as fugitive as light in a sea-wet shell. This nice simile here talks to us about how memories can change shape and that they transform over time. Just as when you have a wet shell and the light goes on it and you move it around, how it starts to look different. It's about how memories are shaped and memories change and they're fluid like the water itself. Then we get a sense of where they are. Oh, they're two friends of middle age, so she's not a child anymore. She's looking back. This is her memory. By your parents' grave. So we have this other image of the family, of the parent, but they're dead. They're in there in silence among avenues of the dead. The avenues of the dead and the marble and granite give a sense that this place is ordered, where it's concrete, where life is temporary and fleeting and chaotic. Death is a constant. It is final, and it is not temporary. And then we have the cadences of the trees and the autumn grasses. So then these natural images that seem to move a bit more, and the musical image of the cadence. Cadences are about the flow of music, and the flow is sort of like water and like memory, and it transcends time. We know that with Harwood, she uses music to talk about transcending time. Whereas they're in a cemetery, actually what Harwood is saying here is that cemeteries are not for the dead. Cemeteries are for the living. And if you think about it, a cemetery, a grave, is not for the dead person. It's for the people who remember those people. It's about the people who have relationships and memories with those people to come and think about those memories. So really, a graveyard is about transcending time and transcending death through memory and through friendship and through the people that you leave behind. So it's quite a nice image here. And then it talks about having a wholeness to share between us. This image of friendship, positive images of friendship in this graveyard, so of death and memory. And it's about shared memory and transcending time through that shared memory and through friendship. And the reconciliation, we have this wholeness, the reconciliation of the mortal and the immortal and living in the moment. This wholeness that Harwood always talks about herself, the strive for wholeness. Then we have another memory, a more recent memory. She's talking about being in her friend's garden, which is a biblical image of Genesis and the creation of life. And then we see that through this pumpkin, this natural image, which is about the pumpkin growing and rising to flourish, the fruits of the earth, which is another biblical image. Above their humble station, she is saying that these pumpkins, they're supported by very slim, skinny vines, but they're really big. They have surpassed expectation. They're transcending their position. They're surviving all the things that life has thrown at them, being rolled like a doll, and they're transcending that. They're rising above that in airy defiance of nature. So this is what I was talking about with the defiance of nature of walking on water. And this is recurring throughout. Defying nature is also about defying the physical world. The persona is saying that she will also defy nature by transcending time, by not being bound by the physical and by the temporal. Then she says it's a parable of herself. A parable is a moral story. It teaches us a lesson, and it's usually religious. So we have another biblical image, and it's about herself. She's saying the pumpkin is like me. It's a skin full of elements, which is quite an unusual way for her to describe it, seeing as she's a romantic poet, and this is quite a logical and factual image, a skin full of elements. And she's describing herself scientifically and similar to the pumpkin, which is also a skin full of elements, but it's climbing towards the fastness of light. So it's the logical trying to move towards the spiritual. And then she talks about bones wearing and the flesh in its final shape. So this image of the physical being and life wearing us down, and we are wearing out our physical being. As the drying face of the land rose out of the earth's seamless waters. She's saying that's what she's like. She's comparing herself to the creation of land and water. So just as they work in tandem, so do the two selves of the persona. And this word rose, which is reminiscent of the pumpkin rising, is quite a triumphant word. It's about coming past struggle, moving past struggle. Then we have this dream. And the dream here is shown as just as important as the memory and just as valid. So she deals with all states of consciousness and sees that they all make up the whole person, because your dreams are actually part of your consciousness and how you conceive of and imagine and perceive your own life. The interesting thing about the dream is while the memory of the beach is hazy, this is very concrete. She knows exactly where she is in the Brisbane Gardens with this picture of water. So this water image, and it's symbolic of existence and growth and sharing and life. This water that they're sharing between them, it's a symbolic of their friendship. And they're talking and drinking the water. So friendship's about communication with the talking, but the talking creates the memories. And the drinking of the water, it nourishes those memories, nourishes the friendship, gives life and helps to transcend time and creates the flow. And there's still some water left over at the end. So life and friendship and growth and all these things will continue. They're not ending at the end of this dream. There's still some left for them to experience and to have. It might only be one day. That's that image of the finality and temporal nature of life. But it's more than enough to refresh them. Then the final stanza, we're back to the graves. But she doesn't think of death anymore. Ironically, she's standing in a graveyard and doesn't think of death. Just as she's rescued in the first stanza by her father from the waves, so she's rescued from death, she thinks instead here of eternity and immortality and the importance of memory and moments. So like we were saying before, this graveyard actually to her is not about death, it's about life and memory and friendship. And she talks about She rolled in one grinding race, so that's life to her. Just as in stanza 1, she's grabbed and rolled by the water. Of dreams, pain, memories, love, and grief, those are the things that make up life, and they're all of equal worth, and no hand will save her. Contrast to being saved by her father in the first stanza, you have to experience life, and it's a death image here. The peace of this day, though, will shine like light. The peace of this day, the memory of this day will drive us forward as the waters bear her away forever. That's that acceptance of death. The water here is what is going to take her away. She can accept death when her life has been full and when the memory and friendship has been created. This being borne away on the water links back to the memories of childhood being born on the flood. And here with the water, there's an acceptance of death because water, like life, is cyclical. There's a sense of movement. She's moving on rather than stopping. It's not an end. It's a move into the rest of the cycle. And there's a flow, and she will live on and transcend time because of the memory and friendship that she has created.